Hello all, I hope this works. This is the second time I've tried this and I don't know if it's Facebook or myself. So we're gonna see how this works out and, uh-oh, is this me now? I don't know if that's me. It says 1 minute is live now. Okay, good. So I am live right now. So hopefully this is going to work out. I'm going to turn the volume down on this so I can see if anybody hops on. So hello, everybody. Hello, whoever just hopped on to say hello. So I don't know about you guys, but I can barely keep the day straight. Anybody else feeling like that? I have to constantly look at my calendar or something to know what day it is. It's been kind of wild here in my life. We had massive storm damage to our house back in February, but because of COVID, we couldn't fix the damage. Well, hi, Sally. Oh, nice to have you on, Sally. So we were unable to fix the house. And so it's been kind of a wild ride. But now, hi, Joanna. So now, though, we are like starting renovations. It looks crazy. I had the movers here first thing this morning. Like they took everything out of my house. And I can tell you, the biggest problem that we're going to have, no, there's two big problems that we're going to have. Number one, anybody else with me on this? My son says to me, Mom, how are we supposed to drink water? Because our fridge got moved out to the garage and there's no water hookup. And I was like, buddy, we have to drink it out of the faucet. And I feel the same way. We're like, ugh, faucet water. So that is one of the biggest problems. I know, first world problems. And number two, the biggest problem I'm going to have, and I only have to manage it for a little bit, I'm leaving my husband home during renovations and the boys and I are going to go up to the woods together. But he put our gigantic TV, I don't even know what inches it is. It's stupid huge, and it was fine in our family room, but he put it in our bedroom. Number one, we never allow TVs in our bedroom, but you know, he's going to be home for a week without us, and you guys, it's this big. I mean, it's like having an IMAX theater right in front of your bed. The man is so excited, and I'm like, ugh, get it out. So it's been a crazy morning so far. So as you can see, I talked today a little bit in the comments what we're going to talk about today. It's about having empowered conversations. And I know that a lot of us are faced with some really interesting conversations right now. And it really not just around COVID, not just around the racial injustice that we're seeing in our lives and in our country, but who's sick of having everybody under the same roof, right? Or who's struggling to really engage their employees. You know, having those conversations, it's getting harder and harder the more and more we're together. I can speak personally that my husband and I have to practice this more because we are up each other, you know, it's just too much. We are under each other's skin. And even with my kids, you know, trying to have more empowered conversations, empower them, empower myself, it's very difficult because we're just constantly with each other. And so today I wanted to talk about something that you can do, whether it's personally or professionally, whether it's having a conversation maybe with somebody on your social media page that is kind of going off the rails, how you can have empowered conversations, not get pulled into a he said, she said, you're wrong, all I statements, but a conversation that really empowers both of you and ultimately gets you to an outcome, eventually gets you to an outcome. So I wanted to talk to you all about that. So who can tell me, have you struggled with some conversations in the last week? Daniel! Who struggled with conversations in the last week? I know I have, specifically with my family, but conversations are hard. Now, granted, conversations are something that I have been doing for a living for almost 20 years, but that doesn't mean that I'm always good at them. That is for sure. So I wanted to talk to everyone a little bit today about how you can empower these conversations and teach you a technique about how you can really, it may not fix the problem right then and there. But you are going to learn how to communicate more efficiently with someone. and come to a desired outcome. So the first thing when you are engaging in these tough conversations is you have really got to set your judgment and your expectations aside. Period. And that is the hardest thing in the world to do, especially, right, if our emotions are running high, especially if, somebody gets on your page and they start ranting, you're like, wait a second, this is my social media page, and, feelings run high. So in those situations when you're feeling your feelings are running high, just take a step back and tell yourself that you need to approach this conversation for the most empowered conversation. Because here's the thing, you want the conversation to have an outcome, do you not? I mean, that you want an outcome. So you really have to set your expectations of exactly how it's going to go and your judgments aside. I can tell you, as both a counselor and a coach, this is something I think that just in general human beings have a hard time with. Because I think when, like, either if I was a counselor or coach, I have an idea of where I want my client to go, what I want them to do. And that's my expectation. And I'm placing my judgment on them if they're not doing what I told them to do, or they're not doing what they said they were going to do. And so what's happening is I'm placing my judgment on them, and that is going to turn off the conversation immediately. So it's very hard, and this is the hardest step. Hey, Abe, this is the hardest step to initiate these empowered conversations, is take away your judgment and take away your expectation of the individual that you're speaking to. And if you're not able to disengage with it and not have that judgment or that emotion, then it's not the right time. It's not the right time to have that conversation. So number one, you have got to stop focusing on what you want. You really have to go into with I want us to come to a resolution, but it's not all about me. Does that make sense? It's not all about me. Yes, there's two people involved, but you have to stop focusing on what you want. If you can set aside your expectations, and listen intently, being curious as to what the other side desires, what they're going through, just listen. Try to table those frustrations and those judgments, and this will allow you guys to come to a mutual conclusion. So the second step is reflective inquiry, and this is something that has been around forever. In fact, I remember my college professors just hammering away at us when we were in lab, and we had to practice reflective inquiry, because it really is a counseling practice. It's a coaching practice. It's a great human conversation practice. And so, but I remember his name was Charlie, who was also my advisor. He was so hard on me. I love him now, but I couldn't stand him back then. But he was so hard on me in those labs, because I have always had that idea of go, let's go. So I was placing my judgment and my expectations on someone. And so I really kind of skipped, or I faked, the reflective inquiry stage. So let me explain to you what reflective inquiry is. So what reflective inquiry is this is one of the steps that you're going to take to build that psychological safety with the individual that you're speaking with. So again, if you're not feeling like you're psychologically stable to have this conversation, your emotions are going crazy, now is not the time. But this is a step that's really going to help you build a partnership and put you both on equal ground. If you have somebody up here, who feels good if somebody's standing up above them? No one feels good. And so this is giving you equal ground. So reflective inquiry starts with, you're listening to the individual, you're listening to them, you're being curious, you're intently listening, and you reflect back what you heard. This does not mean that you do this verbatim. And this is something that, of course, when I was learning to be a counselor, I would do verbatim, and that just was kind of annoying to people. But it's remembering that you're hearing what they're saying, but saying, I am hearing what you're saying, by reflecting back what they said. So it might sound something like, wow, sounds like that really is upsetting you. Or, gosh, it sounds like you are really stuck between a rock and a hard place. So reflecting back, I hear what you're saying, and you can put more information into it so they feel heard, because that is the most important thing in any empowered conversation. You're empowering an individual by saying, I hear you, I'm listening to you, I'm walking through with this. So that's the first step in reflective inquiry. You're reflecting back what you're hearing the other party say. And then what you do is you have an inquiry right at the end. So with the examples that I gave before, you might say something like, well, what do you think was the most upsetting to you? So a lot of times when people are upset, and this happens a lot of times in coaching sessions, I might have someone go on a tangent, 20-minute tangent, and I've got to bring them back around, and I'll say, wow, it sounds like A, B, and C is really, I can hear how that's so upsetting to you. So which of those is the most upsetting? Which of those is the most challenging? Help them to fine tune, where is it? And just by reflecting what they said and asking them to just kind of identify it more, this allows their brain to cycle through their emotions, to cycle through their judgments, to cycle through all of those things and start to build some continuity, some pathways to, oh, maybe there is a resolution to this, okay? So for example, too, with being stuck between a rock and a hard place, you could say something like, well, which spot was like the hardest for you to be stuck in, right? I mean, here's the thing. I want to ask you all, if someone just consider a conversation, a really tough conversation that maybe didn't go like you had hoped in the last week or so. If someone had just done these 2 steps, just listened, reflected what you said, and just acted curious and asked an inquiry after it, what would that have done for you during that conversation? Now, you don't want anybody to make you feel like you're being demeaned or talked down to, but honestly, would that not empower you just in those 2 steps? Would that not make you feel like, okay, they're listening and they're willing to have this conversation? So just those 2 steps, and I know they're very hard. It sounds like, Piper, there's no way I can do this. This is going to take a ton of time. It's not going to take a ton of time, but you do have to practice this, and you do constantly in the back of your mind have to be telling yourself to shut up, that you don't know everything, stop with the judgments. I mean, you really do. You have to tell yourself a lot, shut up, shut up, shut up. I mean, I have that in my mind all the time, and I hate it when I jump in because I want to help them, I want to fix it, but that doesn't empower anyone. So number 3, when it comes to having these empowered conversations, is I want you to find common ground. I ate popcorn, yeah, for breakfast, so sorry. So number 3 is I want you to find common ground. So within this conversation that you're having with this individual, from listening intently, being curious, and reflective inquiry, you can find common ground. Again, because you're setting aside your judgments and your expectations, correct? So find that common ground. So then you're going to use this common ground and articulate, gosh, what kind of outcome you both might desire, right? So it might be something, sorry, my nose itches now. It might be something like, I was feeling the same in this situation, or I felt similarly in that I felt frustrated with this as well. Find common ground. And again, this is about having everybody on equal footing. It's not about being above someone. And if you're a leader, if you're a true leader, this is not about you knowing exactly how everything should go. A true leader is saying, I am here, I am listening, how can I fix this? In our partnerships, you are leading your partner, you're leading this partner, your partnerships, your children, your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is. This is about equal footing. This is not about me saying I am better than you. And so that's why these kind of conversations are so key, especially right now, because we are stuck in our homes with these crazy people. So find common ground, and again, that's going to establish even a deeper psychological safety for both individuals. And it's really going to stop that fear of uncertainty of, well, what if they think this way of me? The fear of, well, they're not going to listen to me, we're never going to fix this. And it really is going to move you forward and progress toward a goal. So fourth and finally, to have these empowered conversations is partner with this individual with some steps to better communicate or to find a better outcome. So you're going to use reflective inquiry again. So you're using reflective inquiry the whole time. But say you're talking to each other, you've reflected, you've kind of honed in on, gosh, we both have this common ground. Do reflective inquiry again and say, gosh, this was our frustration or your frustration, and boy, I was right there with you with this situation. You have those same commonalities, those same feelings, all of that. And then you're going to use that reflective inquiry. You're reflecting back to them what you just discussed. And then you say, what do you think we could do to move forward? And here's the difference. If you had started out with, what do you think we should do? Right? How is that going to get any conversation in the right direction? Or if, your spouse comes to you and is like, I don't know what's wrong, we're not communicating. You're not going to get anywhere with that. Or if you're working with an employee that's really having a hard time engaging from working from home, and you're like, what's the problem? What are the steps we need to do? That approach is going to shut people down. There is no conversation, no authentic conversation. You are not going to come to an outcome. You are not going to find those steps to find a resolution if that's how you're approaching someone. So that's why reflective inquiry is so empowering to both sides, So you're going to ask that question after you're reflecting back your whole conversation and say, what do you think would be some steps that we could move forward? And you also can say, I've really appreciated this conversation. I would love to share some of my ideas with you if that's okay. This is about common ground. Empowered conversations happen in common ground. Now, remember that you might not get the exact outcome that you wanted from the beginning. Remember that the other individual might not want this kind of conversation. I'm seeing that a lot right now. I am blessed in my life to have Black women in my life, and I've been reaching out to them and saying, hi, Carrie. I've been saying to them, how can I partner with you? And I'm fortunate that these women love me, they know me, we've raised our babies together. So we've had very empowered conversations. We know how to converse. However, I will say that I have seen other individuals, not Black individuals actually, but other individuals that have really struggled with the racial injustices that are going on in the world, and they are not open to empowered conversations. They're mad, and I understand that. But if you have someone that's just angry, then sometimes to have an empowered conversation is to say, okay, this is not going to work. I'm going to step away. Empowerment is also understanding within yourself, this is not worth it or this is worth it. Or it's also understanding, I care enough about this conversation or this individual that I'm going to keep moving through. I'm going to keep trying to empower us in this conversation together. But I have, like I said, hi Alicia, I have been very blessed in the last couple weeks to have some pretty tough conversations, but in those conversations, they have been empowered. And so remember that the outcome you're looking for should not be the outcome that only you are looking for. You're looking for a mutual outcome through empowered conversations. They're going to look differently for everyone. You might have come up with a defined outcome. The steps or the idea of this is what our resolution that we're trying to get to. But here's the thing, again, set your expectations and your judgments to the side, because the individual is not going to define how they feel about the resolution the same as you. So being aware of other people's insights, judgments, expectations, and don't place that on them. I would say the biggest thing with these empowered conversations is you've got to set your stuff aside. And it's hard. I get it. It's hard not to hold on to anger. It's hard to not be brokenhearted. It's hard to have it's hard when someone, maybe attacks you on Facebook page. This is relevant because I'm seeing it a ton on Facebook. But the biggest thing is, do you want a conversation with someone because you feel it's important for both of you? Now, don't force the conversation if they don't care, right? But if you are in the middle of a struggle, whether it's with your spouse, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your direct reports, whether it's with your boss, whatever it is, communication has to come from a place of curiosity. It has to come from a place of curiosity and setting your judgments and expectations to the side. Because here's the thing, when you go into a conversation and you are like, this is how it is, my way or the highway, you're not going to get anywhere. So to have an empowered conversation, number one, stop focusing on what you want. It's not just about you. There's two people in the conversation. And like my husband always says, if this is something that keeps happening with different people, who's the common denominator? You got to take a hard look at yourself and look at your biases. How are you communicating with individuals? Are you just like so stuck in the right and the wrong, or the black and the white, or the, you know what I mean? You have to be able to reflect clearly on you and how you approach things. Number two, use reflective inquiry. Use reflective inquiry. I'm telling you, they taught us this in school, and I'm aging myself. School was 20 years ago. Holy crud, that was a long time ago. But it's something that they teach, because this is a wonderful practice for counselors. This is a wonderful practice for coaches. This is a wonderful practice for leaders, for parents, for spouses. I mean, it's helpful. So you listen curiously. You reflect back what you're hearing. You don't have to do verbatim. And then you ended up with a question. So you reflect back what they're hearing and say to them, gosh, you know, that sounds really hard between this and this. What was the worst part? What's the most challenging to you? Always bring back that inquiry, because it's going to allow that individual to process what's going through their mind. You don't have to help them process. They're doing it themselves. They are creative, beautiful individuals that are perfectly capable of figuring this out. Okay, so that's what reflective inquiry does. It allows you to build psychological safety. It allows you to empower another individual, and allows you to stop saying, I know everything, right? Number three is find that common ground. If you're listening, you will find a common ground. If you set aside your judgments and your expectations, you are going to find a common ground. So find that common ground and state, gosh, I felt the same way, you know, or boy, I felt similarly in that X, Y, and Z. Find a common ground, because again, that's creating that bond, that relationship of it is safe for us to have this conversation. And fourth and finally, partner with this individual to find those steps. So you're going to reflect back the entire conversation that you just had and end it with an inquiry of, okay, well, what do you think is the most important for us to move forward on? We talked about this and what we were similar in this. What do you think is the most important for us to move forward on? How would we do that? And you could even say something like, hey, you know, I really think that this is a great idea. I would love to share some of my insight with you, if that's okay. This is not about you making yourself less than in a conversation. And I hear that a lot of times. People will think, well, this takes too much time, or their ego is driving so much, like, no, this is going to make me look weak. And no, it's not. This is a good conversation, empowered conversation for both parties. Doesn't make you less than, doesn't make you better than. It puts you on equal ground. And that is what we need. That is what we need. So practice these 4 steps to have empowered conversations. We need them right now. And the biggest tip I can give you, yes, reflective inquiry, it's the best thing since sliced bread. But the biggest thing I can tell you is get out of your own way. You don't know everything. And all of us feel like that. All of us have that ego saying, you know it, fight with them on this. You don't know everything. Let it go. Let it go. Stop judging. Stop placing your expectations on others. Listen and empower others. Empower others. So thanks everybody for joining me today. I've had a lot of fun talking with you all. I hope that you all have a fabulous rest of the week. I won't be around next week because I'm going to be where there's no Wi-Fi, much to my children's chagrin. But I'm going to go play in the woods and play on the lake and take a mental health break. I cannot wait. So I hope you all have a fabulous week next week. If you have questions about how to have empowered conversations, or maybe you're stuck in finding a resolution on something, I would love to hear from you. Just shoot me a message, or you can head on over to my website. It's piperharris.net/coaching. so you can learn what I do. I teach leadership, life leadership. This is a life leadership skill. We're all called to lead, and I'm teaching you to work through these things. I work with executives, I work with organizations, but everything that I teach is applicable to each individual, because again, I'm not placing my judgments or my expectations on anyone at any stage in their life. We all need this. No matter what station you are, no matter what position you have, we all need this, including me. So everybody have a fabulous, fabulous Thursday, and I will talk to everybody soon.